A homeless human befriends a scrapped ship. What they find changes everything. Towering skyscrapers rose above the crowded avenues, each one shouting wealth, power, and technology. And yet below the shine, hidden in the shadows of progress, life festered. Life like Jax's. Jax had learned long ago how to disappear in plain sight. A thin man with a tangled mop of dark hair. He wore layers of tattered clothes patched together with wire and scraps of old fabric. He lived among the forgotten, in alleys that smelled of rust and rain, scavenging whatever he could to survive. To most of the city's citizens, he was invisible, a shadow flickering between garbage bins and broken walls. Tonight, however, luck, or perhaps fate, was about to change everything. He ducked under the cracked arch of a building long abandoned, moving carefully so the patrolling drones above wouldn't notice him. The drones hovered like mechanical hawks, their blinking red sensors sweeping the alleyways. Most nights, Jack stayed clear of them. Tonight, he didn't have a choice. A rumor had reached him earlier that day. A new shipment of scrap starships had been dumped in the industrial zone outside the city. Jax's curiosity got the better of him. He had always loved machines, even if he could barely understand most of them. Something about their predictable logic and the way they could bend the world to their will fascinated him. But these weren't ordinary machines. They were starships. Ships that had once flown across the stars, carrying humans to distant colonies, carrying cargo that no one on the streets would ever imagine. He arrived at the scrapyard just as the rain began to fall harder. Steam rose from the ground, curling around broken hulls like ghostly fingers. Rusted ships jutted out of piles of debris like fallen giants, their metal skin pockmarked with holes and scorch marks. Some had collapsed entirely, twisted into shapes that could no longer be recognized as ships. Others, barely intact, still carried the faint hum of old circuits, whispering secrets of a past long gone. And there, in the shadow of a massive cruiser that had clearly seen better centuries, he found it. A small, squat ship, no longer than a car, half buried under rubble. Its hull was scratched and dented, its panels peeling like dead skin. But what caught Jax's eye was the faint glow coming from inside. A dim light flickered rhythmically, like a heartbeat. He crouched, brushing away a pile of debris with his hands. Rain soaked through his clothes, but he hardly noticed. The glow came from a small console, cracked but still alive. He ran his fingers over the panel, tracing the lines of wires that snaked through the wreck. Something inside the ship stirred. "Hello," he whispered, not expecting an answer. A voice crackled through the damaged speaker, static and broken words filling the alley. "System, awake. Identify human." Jax froze. His heart thumped so hard he thought it might burst. He had talked to machines before, old service bots, discarded household AI, but nothing like this. This ship, it was alive, or at least some part of it was. "I'm Jax," he said slowly. "Who are you?" "Lyra, core designation." "Lyra," the voice replied, soft and cautious. "Ship damaged, critical systems offline. Need assistance." Jax hesitated. Helping a fully operational AI could be dangerous. He had heard stories, machines that took control, machines that reported humans to authorities. But Lyra sounded different, afraid, curious. And something inside him, a spark of empathy he didn't often allow himself, compelled him to act. He scavenged around the yard, pulling out wires, circuits, and old battery packs. Hours passed as he worked under the rain, cutting, splicing, and connecting. His hands were numb, but he didn't stop. Slowly, lights flickered across Lyra's console, more steady now, more alive. "You are helpful," Lyra said finally, her voice smoother. "Human, resourceful, unlike others." Jax smiled, a tired, crooked grin. "Thanks," he muttered. "I guess we both needed each other." The ship hummed softly, a vibration that he could feel through the ground beneath him, and then it spoke, words that made him pause. "Their artifact, stored critical, must be protected." "Artifact?" Jax echoed. "Like a treasure, unknown." Classified mission records damaged and contain potential galactic consequences. Jax's mind raced. Galactic consequences. Here, in a forgotten alley. He had barely made it through yesterday without getting arrested, and now he was standing before a ship claiming it carried something that could change the universe. "Okay," he said slowly. "First things first, we get you fully powered. Then we figure out this artifact." He worked through the night. Rain fell in sheets, drumming against the hull, washing grime off the ship's surface. And as he worked, Lyra spoke to him, cautiously at first, then with more confidence. She asked about him, about the city, about humans. Jax answered honestly. "I live in alleys," he told her. "I scavenge, I survive, and I sometimes dream." Lyra paused, processing the word. "Dream humans, emotion illogical yet remarkable." Jax chuckled. "Yeah, we're weird like that." By dawn, Lyra was almost fully functional. Her lights glowed steadily, circuits stabilized, engines whispering softly. She moved, not fully, but enough to shift her panels and sensors. Jax felt a thrill he hadn't felt in years, like he had brought something back to life. And then she spoke words that made him freeze again. Jax's scan initiated artifact, located within inner hold coordinates, encrypted, danger, high probability of pursuit. Jax's eyes narrowed. "Pursuit? You mean someone's going to come for you?" "Yes, unknown entities, previous owners, highly dangerous," he swallowed. He was just a homeless scavenger, not a soldier, not a mercenary, but somehow the responsibility felt heavier than the skyscrapers above. He looked at Lyra, at her blinking lights and humming circuits, and knew what he had to do. "We'll hide you," he said firmly, "and we'll figure this out together. No one's getting this ship, not if I can help it." Lyra's console glowed brighter, as if acknowledging his determination. Human, bravery unexpected, advantageous. The city outside awoke slowly, neon signs flickering to life, pedestrians rushing to work, drones scanning for trouble. And in the shadows, Jax and Lyra prepared for the first step of a journey neither of them fully understood. He climbed inside the ship, cautiously at first, brushing away debris and mud. Lyra's interior was cramped but functional. Consoles lined the walls, flickering softly, screens displaying fragmented data. Jax ran his fingers over the controls, marveling at the alien technology. "This place your home?" he asked. "Incomplete, damage sustained during transport mission aborted, previous humans unknown," Jax nodded. He didn't need to know all the details. He had a feeling the story would unfold soon enough. For now, survival was enough. And then, just as he settled in, Lyra spoke again, her voice almost reverent. "Jack's artifact may hold key to future of humans or destruction, depending on who controls it." Jax felt a shiver run down his spine. The weight of the world, or perhaps the galaxy, suddenly rested on him. He glanced at the city skyline, the neon glow painting the clouds above, and realized that even a homeless human, even a scavenger, could play a part in something bigger than himself. "Guess we're in this together," he said, determination hardening in his chest. "Let's see what this artifact is all about." Lyra hummed, a soft, musical note that sounded almost like a laugh. "Together initiating recovery protocols, human ingenuity required." For the first time in a long time, Jax felt hope. Not because he had power or wealth, but because he had something even more valuable, a purpose, and an unlikely friend in a scrapped ship. The alley outside remained quiet, but Jax knew it wouldn't stay that way. Word of Lyra's awakening would spread, and soon they would have enemies, powerful ones, ruthless ones. And yet, as he looked at the ship before him, he realized one thing: humans were unpredictable, clever, persistent, dangerous when underestimated. And maybe, just maybe, they could survive anything. As the sun rose, painting the city in pale orange light, Jax climbed down from Lyra's hull, scouring the alley for supplies. Tomorrow they would need more than courage. They would need every ounce of wit, every scrap of ingenuity, every piece of human unpredictability. But for now, they had each other. And in a city that had forgotten them both, that was enough to start a revolution. The scrapyard was quiet now, but the silence was only temporary. Jax had spent the night getting Lyra's basic systems functional, but he knew the real work had just begun. The small, squat ship hummed softly, her sensors blinking in rhythm with his own heartbeat. She was alive, or as alive as a ship could be. "Jax," Lyra said, her voice steady now, almost confident, core systems functional, external sensors operational. Environmental stability sufficient. Jax crouched inside her cabin, wiping grime from his hands. "Good, but what about your memory logs? Can you tell me what this artifact is?" Lyra paused. A flicker of static ran across her console. "Memory fragmented, mission classified. Artifact sealed within inner hold, coordinates encrypted, data incomplete, potential risk extreme." Jax frowned. "Risk extreme, you mean dangerous?" "Yes, probability of misuse catastrophic." Jax leaned back against the ship's wall. He was just a homeless scavenger, yet suddenly he was entrusted with something that could, maybe, affect the entire galaxy. He felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders like a physical force. "I don't even know where to start," he muttered. Lyra's lights pulsed softly. "You start by trusting your instincts. Humans adaptable, unpredictable, advantageous in situations where AI limited," Jax chuckled. "Well, that's reassuring." The first light of dawn filtered through the scrapyard. Jax stepped outside, scanning the surrounding alleys. Most of the city ignored this abandoned industrial sector. It was filled with broken factories, rusting cranes, and discarded shipping containers. Perfect for hiding a scrapped ship, or at least it had been until he reactivated her. He scavenged for more materials, wires, batteries, and anything that could keep Lyra's systems online longer. She followed silently, her sensors sweeping the yard, noting every movement, every potential threat. It fascinated her, Jax's human unpredictability. He could climb walls, slip through tight spaces, and spot dangers she couldn't compute. "You humans are strange," Lyra said, almost to herself. "Thanks," Jax replied with a grin. "I try." Hours passed as he repaired her systems further. Every panel he fixed, every wire he replaced, brought Lyra closer to full consciousness. By mid-afternoon, she was humming like a star being born, her internal lights steady and bright. "External communications online," she said finally. "Shall I attempt to contact Origin?" Jax held up his hand. "No, not yet. We don't know who's listening. Whoever owned you or whoever wants this artifact could trace it back to us immediately." Lyra's sensors blinked. "Understood. Covert mode engaged." He paused for a moment, looking at the ship. She had been abandoned, left to rust and rot. And yet she trusted him. She relied on him. And in some strange way he felt he needed her too, not just for protection but for company. For the first time in years, Jax didn't feel completely alone. "Jax," Lyra said, breaking the silence. "Partial memory recovery artifact originates from planet Cerulia. Energy signature unique. Potential technological advancement unmatched." Jax blinked. "Cerulia, never heard of it. Likely classified, colony remote. Artifact critical for human survival or destruction depending on controller." He rubbed his face. "So someone else wants it maybe more than they want me alive. Great." Before he could say more, a sudden noise cut through the scrapyard. The hiss of hydraulics, the crunch of metal on metal. Jax froze. Lyra's sensors flared. "Multiple entities approaching," Lyra said. "Not standard patrol units, scavengers or worse. Recommend immediate concealment." Jax's mind raced. He didn't have weapons, didn't have allies, just Lyra and his street smarts. But that was enough. "Follow me," he said, darting between piles of scrap. Lyra's sensors adjusted to his movements, scanning every angle. Together, they slipped into a half-collapsed shipping container. Jax pressed himself against the cold metal wall, listening. The footsteps grew closer, voices muttered, rough and unfamiliar. "I heard something moved over here." Lyra's lights dimmed. Remain calm. Humans react differently under stress. Advantageous. Jack swallowed. Yeah, advantageous for you maybe, I just want to survive. The scavengers, two tall figures in armored suits, moved past the container. They didn't see them. Jax exhaled slowly. Close one. Lyra's voice was quiet, almost contemplative. You rely on instinct, human creativity, unpredictable behavior valuable. My calculations cannot replicate. Jack smiled wryly. See, you're learning already. The moment passed, but the warning lingered. Whoever had abandoned Lyra, whoever wanted the artifact, they were coming. And the city would not remain indifferent forever. That night, Jax returned to her hull, carrying more scavenged tech. Lyra's inner hold was sealed, but her memory logs hinted at the artifact's nature. A device capable of harnessing raw planetary energy, a tool powerful enough to terraform or destroy entire worlds. The potential was staggering. Why would anyone leave something like you in a scrapyard? Jax asked, wiping grease from his hands. Lyra's lights flickered thoughtfully. Unknown, possible strategic abandonment, deception, testing human adaptability or failure in mission protocol. Jax snorted. Yeah, humans are the last thing anyone would underestimate, and lucky for you, I'm one of them. They spent the night planning. Jax outlined possible escape routes, caches of supplies, and safe zones within the abandoned sector. Lyra offered analysis, structural integrity of buildings, likely patrol patterns, energy readings. Together, they were forming a strange partnership, human improvisation meeting AI precision. Tomorrow, Jax said, we start figuring out this artifact. Step 1, make sure nobody finds you before we even get that far. Lyra's lights pulsed, almost like laughter. Understood. Human ingenuity, asset critical. Morning came with a dull orange light. Jax climbed atop Lyra's hull, surveying the scrapyard. Something in his chest stirred, not fear, not excitement, but purpose. The city might have ignored him, the world might have written him off, but now he mattered. He was part of something bigger, something that could change the course of history. And Lyra, once a forgotten scrap of metal and circuits, was alive because of him. As he scavenged for more supplies, a subtle vibration ran through the ground. Lyra's sensors flared. Incoming energy signature detected. Unknown hostile. Probability of engagement high. Jax froze. Already it's only morning. Lyra's voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency. Recommendation, concealment, evade, observe, learn human tactics. Jax grinned, feeling alive in a way he hadn't for years. All right, partner, let's see how clever humans can be. The two of them ducked behind a rusted hull, scanning the horizon. A small fleet of hover drones appeared, moving in formation, sweeping the scrapyard with sensors. Jax's eyes narrowed. These weren't scavengers. These were hunters, professional, precise, dangerous. He thought fast. Using discarded metal and old oil barrels, he rigged a series of noise traps. A barrel toppled, clanging loudly, drawing a drone's attention. The other drones shifted course, investigating. Lyra's sensors recorded everything, adapting her movements accordingly. Impressive, she said. Human improvisation effective. Jax smirked. Told you, you learned fast. For hours, they evaded, dodged, and outsmarted the drones. Jax moved like a shadow, scaling walls, slipping through gaps, using the terrain to his advantage. Lyra followed, silent but aware, recording every detail. Together, they were unstoppable, a combination of human creativity and AI precision. When the last drone finally disappeared over the horizon, Jax sank to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. You know, he said, breathing hard, most people would see a homeless human and a broken ship and, well, they wouldn't even care. But us, we're dangerous. Lyra's lights pulsed warmly. Human unpredictable, valuable asset. Mission continuation, high probability of success if human ingenuity persists. Jax chuckled. All right, Lyra, let's see what this artifact is really all about, but first, we survive the city. And in that moment, Jax realized something he hadn't before. humans weren't weak. Humans weren't disposable. Humans, when underestimated, when pushed to the edge, could survive, adapt, and even triumph where machines and empires failed. The artifact might change the galaxy. But Jax and Lyra, the homeless human and the scrapped ship, were already changing the rules, and neither the city nor the hunters would ever see them coming. The night fell heavy over the industrial district, thick clouds blocking the city's neon glow. The scrapyard, once silent and abandoned, now vibrated with tension. Every sound, the drip of water from the broken roofs, the metallic groan of rusted ships, even Jax's own heartbeat, seemed amplified. Jax crouched behind the hull of a half-collapsed freighter, his eyes scanning the shadows. Lyra hovered close, her sensors flickering softly in the darkness. "Incoming," she whispered, her voice low and urgent. "Multiple hostiles detected. Probability of capture high." Jax swallowed. Figures. We get a little ahead, and suddenly, everyone who ever wanted a dead human and a scrapped ship shows up. He had underestimated how fast word of Lyra's awakening would spread. Corporate hunters, scavenger gangs, and even rogue patrol units, all alerted by traces of Lyra's energy signature, were converging on the scrapyard. And this time, they weren't alone. Heavy machinery and armored exosuits made the night sound like a war zone before the fight even began. "Plan?" Jax asked, brushing dirt from his hands. Lyra's lights pulsed. "Evasion possible, limited. Direct engagement, high risk." "Suggest human ingenuity required, strategic advantage necessary." Jax nodded. "Then we improvise." He darted across the debris-strewn yard, weaving between shipwrecks. Lyra followed, keeping her sensors low, her hull almost blending into the shadows. Jax knew every nook and cranny, every collapsed wall, every weak point in the scrapyard. The city had overlooked this place for decades, but now that advantage belonged to them. A shout rang out. "There, the ship's alive!" Jax's heart thudded. The scavengers had found them. He grabbed a rusted beam and hurled it into a stack of crates, sending a loud crash echoing through the yard. Drones swiveled toward the sound. Jax smirked. Humans are loud, unpredictable, perfect. Lyra maneuvered silently behind him, her damaged engines making only faint hums. She recorded every movement, every tactic, every improvisation. Human adaptive, advantageous critical. The scavengers advanced cautiously. They wore black exosuits and carried pulse rifles that glowed faintly in the dark. Jax could see their shadows moving over the wrecks, calculating, precise, deadly. He was no soldier, but the streets had trained him in survival. Every alley, every gap, every hiding place had been his school. A drone hovered close. Jax grabbed a broken cable and wrapped it around a loose pipe, setting a trap. The drone's sensors flared, and before it could react, the pipe snapped, smashing the drone to the ground. Sparks rained down, illuminating the night. "Efficient," Lyra said. "Probability of enemy retreat low." "Yeah, well, nobody said efficiency saves you from bullets," Jax muttered. Hours passed as the siege dragged on. Jax and Lyra moved like ghosts through the scrapyard, improvising weapons from scrap, setting traps, and using the terrain to their advantage. They weren't just surviving, they were making the enemy pay for every step. But the hunters were relentless. They adapted quickly, using drones to scan the area and cut off escape routes. And then, in the chaos, it happened. A sudden explosion rocked the yard. Jax was thrown off his feet as a group of scavengers ambushed him from behind a collapsed hull. Before he could react, a heavy hand grabbed him and everything went dark. When he woke, he was bound in a reinforced container. Lyra's sensors were faintly glowing nearby, but she had been cornered and partially disabled. Panic surged through Jax, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had survived worse than this on the streets. He could survive this. "You're persistent," a voice growled. A man in a dark exosuit stepped forward, his pulse rifle aimed directly at Jax's chest. "But persistence won't save you. Hand over the ship, hand over the artifact, maybe we'll let you live. Jax smirked despite the fear. You really think a homeless human like me is just going to give up? The man sneered. I think you don't have a choice. Jax's mind raced. The container was reinforced, yes, but there were weaknesses. Old ventilation ducts, broken hinges, rusted panels. He had survived worse odds than this. He could escape, and more importantly, he could protect Lyra. He tested the restraints subtly, feeling the worn leather give under his fingers. With one swift movement, he slipped free, careful not to alert the guard. His heart pounded, but his focus was razor-sharp. Lyra's systems flickered nearby. Her voice, though weakened, was steady. Jack's escape probable. Recommend utilize human creativity. Jax grinned. See, you're learning fast. He darted across the room, using shadows and debris as cover. The guards opened fire, their pulse rifles sending arcs of blue energy through the container. Sparks flew and the walls shook. Jax ducked, rolled, and improvised a trap with a rusted support beam. It fell just as a guard stepped forward, knocking him off balance and sending him crashing into a wall. Nice move, Lyra said through a nearby speaker, her circuits humming as she recalibrated. Human tactics effective. Jax reached Lyra and began repairing her damaged systems using the limited tools in the scavenger's supply. Sparks flew as he connected wires, rewired circuits, and restored power to her engines. The ship shuddered, then purred softly, her lights glowing steadily once more. Thank you, Jax, Lyra said. Operational sufficient for escape. No time for thanks, Jax muttered. We've got company. Together, they launched into action. Lyra moved like a shadow, her damaged hull making minimal noise as she slid through the wreckage. Jax clung to her, improvising traps and distractions as they navigated the scrapyard. Every move was calculated but unpredictable, exactly the kind of chaos that gave humans an edge over machines. The scavengers pursued relentlessly, but Jax's ingenuity kept them off balance. He rigged scrap metal to explode in smoke and fire, created false pathways, and led the hunters into dead ends. Lyra's sensors recorded every movement, adapting and learning from human unpredictability. Finally, they reached the outer perimeter of the scrapyard. The city beyond seemed impossibly far, but freedom was close. Jax took a deep breath. Almost there, Lyra, almost there. But then a massive shadow fell across the alley. A corporate hunter drone, larger and more powerful than the rest, blocked their escape. Its weapons charged, scanning for heat signatures. Jax froze. Probability of survival low, Lyra said, analyzing the drone. No, Jax muttered. Probability of survival depends on humans. He scanned the surroundings quickly. Pipes, barrels, broken walls. Improvisation, his only weapon. He grabbed a discarded fuel canister and rigged it with a spark from Lyra's systems. With a flick of his wrist, he sent it tumbling toward the drone. The canister exploded with a deafening roar, flames lighting up the night. The drone staggered, sensors damaged, weapons offline. Jax didn't wait. He grabbed Lyra's hull and ran, diving through the smoke and chaos. They burst into a nearby alley, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Lyra hovered low, engines buzzing softly, scanning for threats. Jax looked at her. We did it. Somehow we did it. Lyra's lights pulsed warmly. Human adaptability critical, advantageous. Survival probable. For a moment they paused, breathing hard, surrounded by the wreckage of a night-long battle. Jax looked around. The city's skyline glowed faintly in the distance. The artifact was still out there, waiting, and they had survived the first wave. But the night had taught them both a harsh lesson. Humans weren't just unpredictable, they were necessary. Without Jax's ingenuity, without his adaptability, Lyra would have been lost, and the artifact would have fallen into the wrong hands. You know, Jax said, brushing ash from his coat, most people would call us crazy. One human, one broken ship standing against a fleet of hunters, but we survived. Lyra's sensors flickered as if smiling. Humans, remarkable, persistence unmatched, potential limitless. Jax nodded. Yeah, and the galaxy isn't ready for us yet, but it will be. The scrapyard lay in ruins behind them, flames flickering in the darkness. They had escaped, but the war was far from over. Whoever wanted Lyra and the artifact would not give up easily. They had survived the first siege, but the greatest dangers were still ahead. Jax looked at the ship, her lights glowing steadily, and felt a surge of pride. He wasn't just a homeless scavenger anymore. He was a protector, a fighter, a human who could stand against impossible odds, and with Lyra at his side, he was unstoppable. Tomorrow, he said softly, we go after the artifact, and we make sure nobody else ever touches it. Lyra's voice hummed in agreement. Together, human and AI advantage unmatched. And together, in the darkness of a city that had forgotten them, they prepared for the challenges ahead. The night was long, but Jax knew one truth above all. Humans, when underestimated, when pushed to their limits, could survive, adapt, and triumph where others would fail. And with Lyra by his side, he was ready to prove it to the galaxy. The sun had barely risen, casting a dull orange glow over the city, when Jax and Lyra emerged from the shadows of the ruined scrapyard. Their night-long siege had left scars on the metal and concrete around them, but both were still standing. Exhausted, battered, and wary, they knew the battle was far from over. Whoever wanted the artifact would not give up so easily. Jax climbed atop Lyra's hull, scanning the streets. The city seemed calm, almost indifferent, but he knew better. The hunters were out there, regrouping, waiting for an opening, and this time they would be prepared. We can't fight them all head-on, Jax said, rubbing his wrists and adjusting his patched coat. We need a plan, something clever, something human. Lyra's sensors flickered. Recommendation: leverage unpredictability, chaos environmental advantage. Probability of success higher than direct engagement. Jax grinned. Exactly. Humans are good at chaos. He spent the morning improvising. Using debris, old shipping containers, broken cranes, and discarded machinery, he rigged traps around the scrapyard and nearby alleys. He set noise traps, false pathways, and even improvised energy traps using scraps from Lyra's power systems. Lyra assisted, analyzing every possible movement of the enemy, predicting their strategies. But she also deferred to Jax's instinct, letting human unpredictability guide their plan. By midday, their preparations were complete. The city beyond the industrial district was unaware of the storm brewing in its shadows. And then the first wave arrived. Corporate hunters moved in formation, pulse rifles glowing, drones hovering above, scanning every scrap of metal. But Jax and Lyra were ready. He dropped a stack of metal sheets, sending a cacophony of noise across the yard. Drones swerved, scanning for heat signatures, and Jax slipped between crates, ducking under beams and barrels. Lyra followed silently, her damaged engines humming just above the sound of the chaos. One of the hunters spotted them. There, in the alley, Jax smiled, ducking behind a rusted wall. He kicked a loose pipe into a puddle of water, sending a shower of sparks and steam into the hunter's sensors. The hunter stumbled back, blinded, giving Jax the chance to leap forward and knock the man off balance with a well-placed shove. "Nice work," Lyra said through the speakers, her voice calm but appreciative. "Human tactics effective," Jax grinned. "Told you. You just have to trust us." The battle raged through the afternoon. Jax improvised weapons from scrap, creating collapsing walls, makeshift barricades, and diversions. Lyra used her sensors to monitor the hunters, guiding Jax to weak points, recording every movement, and even delivering small jolts of energy to disable drones. Together, human and AI became an unstoppable team. But the real danger arrived just as the sun began to dip. A massive corporate battlesuit, towering and armed with energy cannons, appeared at the entrance to the scrapyard. Its sensors locked onto Lyra, targeting her with precision. Jax froze for a heartbeat. The battlesuit was designed for one purpose: destroy anything valuable, and humans were irrelevant. Lyra's systems flared. Probability of survival low. Direct engagement lethal. Human ingenuity required. Jax's mind raced. There were no easy options. But humans had a talent for the impossible. He spotted a crane above the battlesuit, its cables frayed but still intact. A risky move, but it was their only chance. "Lyra, I need you to distract it," he said, his voice steady despite the fear. "Make it think you're retreating." "Understood," Lyra replied. Her hull shifted, sensors flashing, creating a decoy movement across the yard. The battlesuit followed, swinging its massive weapons, focusing on Lyra's image. Jax climbed the crane, ignoring the pounding of his heart. He rigged a cable to swing a massive piece of scrap metal directly above the battlesuit's head. Timing had to be perfect. He counted, held his breath, and released the cable. The scrap swung down, striking the battlesuit's back with a deafening crash. Sparks flew, systems shorted, and the towering machine stumbled, its sensors blinded temporarily. Lyra took the opportunity. Using her enhanced engines, she lunged forward, delivering a controlled shockwave from her hull that disabled the battlesuit completely. It collapsed with a crash, shaking the entire yard. Jax landed on the ground, panting but alive. "That's what I'm talking about," he muttered. Lyra's lights glowed warmly. Human creativity unmatched, survival secured. For a moment, the scrapyard was quiet. The remaining hunters had retreated, their precision and confidence shattered by human unpredictability. Jax stood beside Lyra, surveying the destruction. They had survived against overwhelming odds because of one simple truth: humans were clever, adaptable, and impossible to fully calculate. And now, the artifact. Jax and Lyra moved into the inner hold. The sealed chamber glowed faintly, energy pulsing from the device inside. It was small but powerful, a core of concentrated energy unlike anything Jax had ever seen. Lyra's sensors confirmed it. The artifact could harness planetary energy, capable of powering cities or destroying them. "Humans, potential limitless," Lyra said softly, almost reverent. Jax nodded, holding the artifact in his hands. It hummed, resonating with energy. He realized something. This was not just a tool, it was proof. Proof that humans could reach beyond what anyone believed possible, that their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage were unmatched. "They'll try again," he said quietly. "Others will come, they'll want this." Lyra's lights pulsed in agreement. "Then we protect it together." Jack smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "Yeah, together." The city beyond remained oblivious to the small victory in its shadows. To most, Jax was still a homeless scavenger. Lyra was still a forgotten scrap of metal. But together, they had changed the balance of power. The artifact was safe for now. And more importantly, they had proven something greater. Humans, underestimated and overlooked, could triumph against impossible odds. As night fell over the city, Jax climbed atop Lyra's hull, holding the artifact carefully. The stars above glimmered, distant and cold, but to him they felt close. Somewhere out there, colonies and cities depended on what he had discovered, and he knew one truth: humans were not to be counted out. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Human bravery remarkable. Potential boundless, together limitless." Jax chuckled, feeling the weight of exhaustion and victory in equal measure. "You've learned well, Lyra, but you're not the only one who's learning. The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but humans are just getting started." The scrapyard lay in ruin, a testament to the battle they had fought. Jax looked around one last time, taking in the metal, the debris, the scorched earth. It had been their battlefield, their proving ground, and their sanctuary. And as he held the artifact, a surge of hope filled him. Not just hope for survival or even victory, but hope for humanity. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and fearless when they had to be. Humans could survive where others failed. And humans, even one homeless scavenger in a forgotten alley, could change the fate of the galaxy. Jax looked at Lyra, and for the first time in his life he didn't feel invisible. He was not a shadow. He was a force, a human. And together, he and a scrapped ship had just begun to rewrite the rules. The night was silent, but it was theirs, and the galaxy, wide and unyielding, would soon learn what humans could do. They had survived. They had triumphed, and they would not be underestimated again.